What's going on, my people of YouTube? It is wow, I can't say that anymore. It is Sephro once again coming to you with another video as promised, and in this video I'm going to be explaining our personal favorite topic, sylphs. And before I forget to do this and level up on accident, I'm gonna do this. Man, I love it when my BR goes up. I'm going to show you guys exactly where you can get the sylphs. So, of course, you only get one sylph available to you for free, and it's always random. It's either going to be Pan, Eve, Amazon Queen, or Iris. The freebies you can get unless you're a spender or you're saving up the butt to get the sylph packs to get, wrong spot. If you're saving up for sylph packs to get a common or light or dark essence, then you're kind of screwed on that note. But aside from that, yeah. So this is going to be based around if you're free to play or if you are a casher dash free to play. I can't remember which one I said first. It's been a long day. But anyway, and also guild battle is like in the next hour, so I'm going to breeze through this as quick as I can. So, well, quick and reasonable, of course. So we don't get interrupted. I'm gonna go. No. Yes. So we're going to be in guild chamber, so nobody can bother us. Okay, so for sylphs, you either start out with Iris, Amazon Queen, Pan, or Eve, and of course Hades you have to pay for, sadly. And because I don't have him unlocked, I will have to go through his skills to give you guys a general idea of what to go for, since we're allowed to have up to 6 slots still, in which case I don't understand why PC version can't do it. But the 6th slot left a lot of opportunities for us to experiment with our sylphs and display how they can be used more effectively and more on the offensive side or defensive side. So here's a couple things I found out. Of course, when you're getting them, they start out as a common. And if you remember where Sylph Exchange lady is, Alice, you go to her and you have to get what is called Sylph Essence from beating up Sylphs and the Sylphatol. But since they added the auto battle in the last update, thank you, Seven Road, you have to get up to 60 Sylph Essence to get either a Queen, Eve, Pan, or Iris, I think. Yeah, Iris, Eve, Pan, and Amazon Queen. I had to think. Oh, shoot, that's normally dangerous when it comes to me. So, on this note, if you're a casher, you definitely want Apollo. Free-to-play version of Apollo. Believe it or not, it's Iris. Now, a bunch are going to wonder, why would I want the water sylph? Well, funny you should ask that, because I was doing a little investigating before I started this video, and I had a hunch about something, and I looked in and noticed some differences with some of the sylphs, so we're going to go into that. So if you guys see where it says potential, you have what is called potential crystals. You have one for physical, magical, attack, defense, or magical defense and physical defense, physical attack, magic attack, and an all-around stat that just affects everything if you don't have one or the other. So if you guys can see this, if you look in the stats where it says potential stats, it shows you everything for the sylph, what they use, what they don't use, etc. So physical attack-wise is irrelevant to a magic-based sylph, and the main 3 are Apollo, Tier 1, Tier 2 is Iris, and Tier 3 is Eve. Now, if you see where it says magic attack, 600 is where it caps out for Apollo. Iris is 525. And Eve is a miserable 400. In which case, unless you're a crit-based player that hits hard, sure, go for Eve. Because, well, I mean, did say I was going to reevaluate things. Eve really has, but hasn't changed in a way. It just depends on the person, I guess you could say. And the physical and magic defense stats, definitely you can see she's more magic defense based. So, once again, glass cannons definitely show their omnipotence, I guess, if that's the word I want to use. So, in her health, and as you can see, Pan and Eve are the weakest in health. Amazon Queen and Iris are the two top contenders when it comes to health. But then again, you also have Apollo, but again, he's irrelevant unless you're a cacher. So, if you're a knight or mage, knight or an archer, I would say go for Iris. Because one, she's a great support and offensive type depending how you want to play her. And of course, since I'm a knight, of course, you would want a buffs heal support, which I will get into the skills here shortly. But I just wanted to show you guys this. So, for example, since we don't have Hades, it'll probably be 600 like Apollo. Amazon Queen's physical attack is 525. Pan is 400. Therefore, vice versa. He's tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1 is Hades, of course. Tier 1 Apollo, tier 2 Iris, and tier 3 Eve. But for a non-cacher standpoint, it'd be tier 1 and tier 2, tier 1 and tier 2. So, depending on how you want to play, if you want to be more of a defensive person and just be a troll, definitely go for Pan. But of course, if I make a mage, I'm definitely getting Amazon Queen. I'm sorry, Pan, but we might have to part ways, unfortunately. But Amazon Queen, she's just nasty, destructively good. And of course, when you got the artifacts too, that also changes things to where it just skyrockets your stats immensely, to where the sylph is almost a unbeatable wall in a sense. Okay, so now for, as I said, was going to go down to stills. If you use Apollo, these are the skills you mainly want to go for. Now, Holy Vow, this one restores 20% of max health to yourself and dispels 2 debuffs, increasing your block rate by 30, which case that could combo off of the Helios Blessing. If you want to go 3 attacks and 3 buffs and heals, vice versa, that's all fine and dandy, but Helios Blessing would be way too much, so I'm trying to keep it balanced out to where he's got some defense with some health to recover with, and he can also attack mercilessly all at the same time. Now, Holy Vow restores 20%. Oh yeah, we already did Holy Vow. Okay, so the next one would have been Heavenly Body. It dispels a debuff and restores 10% of your max health for 3 turns. So you basically have a built-in Suntoria with Apollo for 3 rounds. Not as effective, but it still helps. A 10% goes a long way. Especially if you use the Goddess Blessing Astral, that's an extra 15% if you block. So 25% altogether, that's a lot of health to get in just a short amount of time. Main skill is also Ray, of course. It hits everybody and it restores 5% of your health. It's good if you're just wanting to hit everything, but it sucks at the same time because it doesn't deal as much as you think it would. And the Delphic, of course, 330% light damage to a random enemy and increases your damage debuff. Oh wait, damage dealt. Why did I say debuff? Damage dealt by 30% for 3 turns. So this is also another type of divine prayer. It deals 200% damage to everybody, dispels a buff from your enemy, and also increases the damage dealt by 20% wait, what is it? 3 turns. Oh, it used to be 2. So if you were going to go off of that, you always do divine prayer, of course, hit with the Delphic, and then Impaling Light, which ironically enough should have been the main Delphic. This thing hits harder than the Delphic, which is actually kind of freaking hilarious. It deals 450% damage to a single target. So, Divine Prayer, Delphic, and Impaling Light, if you're able to get all 3 off at once, plus with a Rage Rune increased to boost your damage. I don't know why I call it Rage Rune, because that's really not its name. It's a whole other thing. And then you got Light Arrow, of course, which deals 135% light damage to 2 random enemy targets, which of course is more of a Team Arena thing, but it also increases your crit rate, so it's also a plus to use if you're a crit build, which is pretty much what my knight kind of is. I'm going to work on block later on when he probably levels up a little bit more, just so he's more beefier and more aggressive based. And then Beam Sword, which is probably a lot better than Shining Strike, in which case Shining Strike is only a 1%, you deal 170% Beam Sword, it does do to 2 random enemies, which is also the equivalent of light arrows. So if you want to go off of a multi-build, light arrow, beam saber, divine prayer, ray, in which case probably judgment and impaling light. If you just want to go full attack build with like no buffs or anything like that, which of course it would be kind of dumb. But if you just want to end things quickly, regardless, more power to you. And the passive's Redeeming Light, when blocking an attack, decreases the chance of receiving crit hits for 10% for another 3 turns, and it stacks 3 times. So, you're getting 30% less crit damage dealt to you, which is actually nice. So that's definitely a plus, because every time you get a sylph, you always get that one passive unlocked, and then you have to work on it. And another thing I like about this game, too, if you guys remember in the old game, you can only have up to 3 passives to help you, but once you unlock them, all those passives are available to you. So that's a plus. So Master of Light. When dealing damage, decreases the target's block rate by 10% for 3 turns, and stackable per 3 stacks. So, of course, that is what it is. Master of Light is also not a bad skill to have too, especially if you are dealing a lot of damage, for one. Illumination. Upon activation, increase all teammates' awakening points by 30. So, you're 500... No, wait, not 500. Used to be 500 in the game. I think it's 300. So, 330 awakening points for everybody. And, of course, if you have Pan and you used the Rage Steel, you basically get all that back and then some, so you basically would stay in Sylph mode for a while, that's for sure. So that would be a plus to have if you team up with anybody that has a Pan or an Iris, because Iris also has that BS skill that lets you restore Rage as time goes on. It's a nice little combination. And then the Radiant Soul, upon activation, reduces damage. Oh, wait, we already went over that. Never mind, I'm looking retarded now. Okay, so for Iris. Oh, that's when she's in just regular Sylph stat. And another thing with her, she increases your physical and magic defense by 3% when active. So therefore, that's another thing to have. I forgot to look over that. That's just his regular attack. And his regular passive increases your magic defense by 5% when active. Therefore, that's also a plus to have if you're Knight, because you lack in the magic defense area. So, for her skills, you have Water Spirit, which decreases the damage received by enemies by 60% for 3 turns, effective up to 2 times. Neptune's Blessing reduces 20% of max health. You take no crit damage for 3 turns, which again is overpowered as can be. Delphic deals 240 damage to all enemies and dispels a buff from targets, in which case, this is another thing they added with Iris. She's able to dispel buffs and debuffs, I believe. But she does dispel a buff from targets, so again, that works amazing if you're in dungeons, or certain dungeons to where it affects certain bosses. Ice Bolt, of course, deals 300% water damage to the enemy with the lowest health percentage. So therefore, whoever has the lowest health, you're getting screwed out of that deal. And Ice Shield. Generate a damage absorption shield for the front row target teammate to absorb damage equal to 30% of the target's max health. Lasts 3 turns. So if you have a really beefy Knight, like Gemi is at the moment, she would be the main tank that absorbs all the damage, and she's not taken as much because of how much her health is. So we'll go with that. So if she has like 1,000,000 health, she's going to be stacked up to withstand like 500,000 damage and so forth. And whatnot. Like, that's just a rough estimate. That was a horrible percentage estimate, though, I will admit. Alright, now Tsunami deals 150% magic water damage to all enemies, dispels 1 debuff from teammate with the lowest health percentage. Okay, so she does dispel buffs for the opponent and dispels debuffs for you. Which case, water is cleansing, water is pure. Which makes absolute sense, and my dog is being a crackhead at the moment. Okay, so, and then, Rain Dance, that's your main AoE heal, restores the health of 60% magic damage to all teammates, plus target restores 5% of their max health upon activation for 3 turns. So, it's a 3-turn Suntoria, plus you're getting a big heal out of it. So, again, that is a good skill to keep. For sure, if you're building on a buff stat. So, Warm Spring restores your health by 85% of magic damage to a teammate with the lowest health, and it also dispels 2 debuffs. So, rain. Okay. Not rain dance. So, whichever one. No, it's not this one. Not this one. Okay, so Tsunami and Warm Spring kind of combo off each other, in which case it's not bad to have them together, of course, and such. Alright, and then the Ice Armor skill. Walker! Get up here. Lay down, you little shit. He's a crackhead. He's literally a Chihuahua, Cocker Spaniel mixed with a Pit Bull. So when I said earlier that he's a mutt, he's literally a mutt. So how this happened, I'm sure you guys can kind of get a vivid explanation or rough imagination how that came to be. But anyway, Ice Armor basically restores health to everybody and dispels 2 debuffs. So therefore, Ice Armor, Warm Spring, and Tsunami are the 3 main ones that dispel debuffs. So when I say Iris is a big-time support buff healer, I mean that she's a force to be reckoned with if she's worked on properly and elevated to even become Triton and Poseidon, because she just says, screw you and screw the enemy for trying to hurt my comrades, teammates, vice versa. Walker, get off me, you nut job. Oh, he's only a year old. Actually, he's a little over a year old, and yet he's a psycho. He's a crackhead, I swear. But yeah, that's pretty good. Deluge Strike, that's pretty much the basic skill, so that's really nothing important. And her passives is what is amazing. Reduces the awakening point, decreases rate by 25 points every 3 seconds after awakening. So when I said if you have her with Apollo, if you have somebody that has Apollo, you have her, and then you have somebody with Pan that can restore your rage, she basically just says, screw you, I'm staying in rage state longer. Walker, I am going to throw you. Chill out. Like, for real. Anyway, this is the busted skill I was telling you about, and this is the passive you want her to have and keep. For sure. But then again, it's a passive, so you keep it regardless. But you absolutely want it as soon as you're able to get it. And Master of Water, damage decreased by 7%, in which case, Knights, this is your best friend. Archers, definitely your best friend. I'm sure you want to main Amazon Queen, in which case, Trip has proven, once again, Amazon Queen is busted on an Archer. So if you decide to do Eve, you're a freaking moron. In which case, also, anyway, Spirit Well. Upon activation, reduces the damage received by 5%, which lasts for 3 turns and stacks up to 3 times. So you're taking 15% less damage on the 3rd round. Yes, that is a major must to have. And the Ocean Mirror, upon activation, 15% chance to restore 10% of health to the teammate with the lowest health percentage. So therefore, Ocean Mirror is a literal plus. So as you guys can see, this is all attacks with 2 heals, no buffs or supports. In which case you want to have her as aggressive as possible if you're Knight, if you're just trying to finish things quickly and just say screw you. And then you have the main support build, in which case you have the main 2 heals, and then you have the main 4 buffs dash supporters, which of course you want all her skills unlocked, and you need the 2nd skill tree unlocked so you can use her as effectively as possible, whether it be Sylph Arena or in multiplayer dungeon or Spire, which we may do a Spire video later and talk, and it's going to be me, Gem, and Trip, and we're going to show you guys just how deadly we've gotten. We can actually get up to Spire boss like 15 or 16, I think, if we're lucky on a good day and whatnot. So, just be looking out for those videos, because we get pretty destructive for sure when it comes to the Spire and whatnot. More so, Trip and Gem, because their sylphs are just busted and their BR is still a little bit higher than mine, but they know I'm catching up. And Trip even made the comment, I will surpass them both. In which case, he kinda isn't wrong. That might be the ego talking, but y'all, if y'all know me and remember me, how I was, even when I wasn't a cacher, I could actually keep up with you because I know my stuff. Anyway, moving on, we have Amazon Queen. So, she's got a variety of different skills to go for. Her main ones is when she's in her sylph mode and whatnot. And then Fury of Fire, increase the player's attack by 5% when active, so therefore that combined with a crit and doubles it, that just goes from 5 to 10% damage, all the less. So, Ode to Styx. Restores 30% of max health, reduces damage by 25% at last 3 turns. I mean, that's probably would be good to have if you want to suffice one of the other attack skills I have, but Vulcan's Blessing, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely must have. Dispels not only 2 debuffs, but increases your damage for 30% for 5 turns. So if you use this and combine it with the damage rune, again, if you're an archer and you do Eve instead of Queen, you're a frickin' idiot. You're an idiot. There's no ands ifs, no gray area about it. You're just a frickin' idiot and a moron. Just throwing that out there. But anyway, moving on. Vulcan's Judgment. This is probably their best attack skill as far as I know because 1, 400% fire damage to random enemy with crit. That's 800% damage, plus you dispel 2 buffs from that target. So not only are you screwing over the other person, you're hitting them really freaking hard, making Electro Sylphs look like jack crap, basically. Alright, so Firestorm. Deals 145% fire physical damage to all enemies and inflict a burn effect, basically their bleed, or dot, damage over time. Receives 40% damage when taking action lasting 3 turns and stackable up to 5 stacks. So if you had a team of all Amazon Queens and y'all used Firestorm, you're just bleeding the crap out of your the bosses or the enemies you're fighting. Then Dragon Blast, that's pretty much common skill, deal 180% physical damage to 2 random enemies, my bad. And then you also have what is called the Blistering Flame, deals 220% fire physical damage to a random enemy and inflicts a burn, bleed, dot effect, which deals 40% damage to them, and it can stack up to 5 times and last 3 turns. Devouring Lava deals 230% fire physical damage to enemies in the front row and inflict molten armor, again, dot effect, which case increases the damage taken by 10% per 3 turns, and it's stackable 3 times. So if everybody uses Devouring Lava, you're basically giving yourself the ability to pierce right through people and make it more deadly, so to speak. And then you have the Internal Inflammation. That skill you absolutely would want to have. Internal Inflammation, Devouring Lava, Delphic, either Firestorm or Blistering Flame. If you want to go for a solid dot build like I kind of am, because I like my damage over time effects, you could make it work, honestly, and then just hit real hard with the Delphic, considering you're going to be bulked off of the Vulcan Blessing, and you got 5 turns and 5 sylph skills, so you're getting 30% plus whatever extra you're dealing to the person. So Fire Sylph is honestly the best choice if you're free to play, and you're going to be free to play. Again, I cannot say this anymore. If you go against this, you're an idiot, and you're going to just make yourself suffer and struggle more. But if you like to struggle, that's all you. But then again, you struggle regardless as a free to play, but you make it work. Okay, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. Do what you want, I guess. So, on that note, Consuming Flames deals so much fire damage, and it's another burn effect, 40%. And then Internal Inflammation, I forgot to read that one. 140% fire damage to a random person, molten armor increases damage. So therefore, it's the same concept as Devouring Lava. It just makes it more accessible to you to deal more damage to people, whatnot. And of course, Burning Strike, that's irrelevant. That's just the basic 1-second skill you can use repetitively over and over. Although, I think I have told Jem before she would probably want to ditch this and go for one of the other ones. In which case, if she's going to be watching this, and I'm sure she will because she's been asking me to help her out with some stuff, and I've been doing as much as I can, you definitely would want to ditch this and just go for the most aggressive ones to go for, like I said, Devouring Lava, Internal Inflammation, Firestorm, and Vulcan's Judgment, absolutely, and Blistering Flames, or just go all burns like I have. Oh, that's not really so much a burn. Blistering Flame, Firestorm. Actually, wait, no, I told a lie. Okay, yeah, so I have 3 burns. Or wait. Oh no, it's 4 burns. So I have burn dots, 1 big Delphic, and then the Vulcan Blessing. On to the passives. Damage dealt plus 7%. Spirit of Fire Mastery. Absolutely want to have this. Master of Flames. 15% chance to increase the awakening points by 50 when taking damage. That's actually really busted. So get that as soon as possible, because I think the start one you get is Fire's Might. Damage dealt is 5% upon activation. Lasts 3 turns, and it stacks up to 3 times. So therefore, you're getting 15% damage to deal. And of course, if you're crit, you double that, so that would be 30% altogether. And then the Scorching Shield, 10% chance to increase damage dealt by 30% when taking damage. Last 3 turns. So again, Amazon Queen is definitely the most busted sylph out of all of the free-to-plays. And then we have Pan. His skills are Cyclone, Whistling Blow, and then his passive is Wind's Protection. Increase the player's health by 5% when active, so therefore, unless, well, I guess that could work for Knight too. Pan could definitely be acceptable for Knights. So, I've not really got to go over all his skills for right since the last time I really looked over with him. But, okay. So, we're just going to jump right into this. So, Whispering Wind. Increase your teammates' damage dealt by 30% and it lasts 5 turns. Okay, so he's also a big-time buffer. So, him with an Iris user, that would... him with Amazon Queen, that would actually be super frickin' effective as frick. I might have to reconsider what I said about Pan earlier and reconsider some opinions. Alright, and the damage decrease taken by 30% for 3 turns, and it's undispellable, Aquilian's Blessing, so they pretty much kept that as it was. His Delphic deals 220% wind damage to all enemies, and it dispels a buff from targets. If I remember correctly, Pan was also the one that was capable of dispelling buffs from people, which made him very more effective in this version. Deal 100% physical damage to all enemies to steal, and then you steal 500 awakening points to add 500 awakening points to all of your teammates. So like I said earlier, Pan combined with an Iris and Apollo user, that would actually be the most ideal, effective way to make a team super strong for sure. In which case, I did say something to Trip, because he did make a mage for this server. I said something about using Pan and trying to master it, and if he could pull that off and build a successful support build with Pan, and he has his archer with the Amazon Queen, or even Gam or me with Apollo and her Amazon Queen, we would definitely be very aggressive to be messed around with. Alright, so Wind's Crest reduces all teammates' damage received by 30%, so it's the same concept as Iris. So, I guess in a sense, Iris is the magical version of Pan, where Pan is the physical version of her, in which case he doesn't heal though. He's more of a defensive sylph minus the heals, which actually isn't bad, so definitely I might actually consider working on him at some point. Alright, so Aquilian's Lament, deal 200% wind damage to the enemy with the lowest health percentage, then dispels 2 buffs from the target. Yeah, so he basically constantly is dispelling buffs from people, and he just definitely... Okay, so Iris is Ice Bolt, so this is the Ice Bolt version of Iris, so yeah. Anywho, so that is also really good. Then Wind's Grace, well, deals 100% to a random tower, and then dispels 1 buff from the target, so therefore, yeah. Pan is actually really good. I actually feel bad about what I said earlier. They actually did a lot for him. I guess then again, when I looked at the stats, I didn't take the skills into consideration, so I might have to reevaluate what I said about Eve even, but in all honesty, though, when the argument stands, Amazon Queen is probably a lot better than Eve, because Eve users I literally thrash the crap out of in arena and whatnot. Either they don't build her right, or she just sucks in general, because she is the... They literally did nerf the heck out of her, but other than that, she's semi-usable. But yeah, generates a shield of 35%. Okay, yeah, so basically just gives you a shield based off of your health. So that's actually not bad. And then Breeze Blade deals 180% physical wind damage to a single attack, or single back row target, and then dispels one buff. Gust Strike, that's just your main one thing. So, anyway, then we have the Wind's Breath. When you block damage, increase your awakening points by 20. Okay, so yeah, Pan would definitely be good if you were a knight. In which case, I'm a knight, so you might see me using Pan in a later future. Master of the Wind, block rate increased by 15%. Okay, yep, if I'm gonna really hate my life. I'm gonna have to work on him later on at some point, for sure, because that just kind of bugged me a little bit. When taking action, increases the block rate by 10% for 3 turns, and stackable up to 3 times for Spirit of the Wind, which ain't bad. Master of Wind, really good. Breath of Shield. When attacked, there is a 10% chance to increase block rate by 30% for 3 turns. So, therefore, argument stands, Pan is freaking good if you're a knight. Now, on to Eve, the most shat-on free-to-play sylph possible. Increase a random ally's damage dealt by 15% for 3 rounds. Shock deals 300% 100 magic electric damage to single target. Okay, and her passive, while in her regular sylph state, is increase the player's attack by 5% when active. Okay, so it basically is Amazon Queen minus the burns. So, Thunder Evolution generates a shield for 20% max health of yourself and increases your damage dealt by 25%. Lasts 3 turns. Interesting. Increases your crit rate by 30% and crit damage by 30%. So, these are just basically buffs altogether. So, those are the main 2 buffs you'd want to use if you're going to use heavier hits, I guess. Thunder Wave Delphic deals 240% electromagic-based damage to 2 random enemies and gains the charged effect. Charged effect. Damage dealt by 20% for 3 turns and stackable up to 3 times. Whoa, okay, wait a minute. So, okay, so Eve does do burn, but not as much. Okay. Shock Chain. And notice 240, 270. 250. Delphic ain't what it used to be. Shock Chain deals 270% electromagnetic damage to 2 random enemies and gains an electrified effect. Increases the crit rate by 20% for 3 turns. Okay, so I guess Eve would still basically work on Archer since they crit the most. In which case, that was always the ideal sylph to use if you were Archer, even in the computer version. In which case, the computer version of Eve is definitely still the strongest free-to-play sylph on that note for a magic class. Thunderstrike deals 250% magic damage to a single enemy in the front end, dispels a buff from the target. Okay, so there's a debuff. Deals 240% magic damage to all enemies and gain electrified effect. Flash Storm increases your crit rate. So, Flash Storm and Shock Chain both just increase your crit damage, crit rate damage, which actually isn't bad. So, Short Circuit, that's an ideal one to always want to have. Deal 105% electro damage to all enemies and gain the charged effect. Okay, so that's basically another burn, but it's not as effective as Amazon Queen, so my argument still stands. Amazon Queen is still better. Deals 180% electro damage to a random enemy and gains the electrified effect, increasing your crit rate. So if you want to deal... If you're definitely Archer and you want to play Eve, in which case that would be a horrible idea, but if you're going to rely on crit, yeah, definitely you want Eve on Archer, nothing else. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're willing to turn your class into a glass cannon for crit situations. So, Shock Chain, Short Circuit, Jupiter's Wrath, and Roll of Thunder. Deal 100% chance. Okay, so that just increases the damage. And so, oh wait, I'm stupid. That's not a burn. It just puts a damage effect. So it's basically Divine Prayer. So you have that on actually 2 or 3 different skills, which is actually surprising. Deal so much damage, and then you'll put a damage debuff on them. Razor, when dealing crit damage, increasing your crit awakening points by 50. Okay, that's actually not bad. Again, archers. Still, Eve is best for archers. Crit rate, plus 15%, archer based. Static field, when dealing damage, to 15% chance to reduce the target's crit rate by 20%, last 2 rounds. Lastly, the unstable voltage, in which case you always want this on Eve. In which case, I guess I'll take back my comment. If you guys want to use Eve, be my guest, but you need to be a very crit heavy build to where your crits never miss and you can deal some very good damage. And her crit rate stacks 3 times. Okay, so it used to be 5. So yeah, they nerfed her to an extent with some of her skills. And now, on to the bane of my existence. Or all of our existence. Hades! Alright, his skills are Separated Barbs, increases a random ally's crit rate by 20% for 3 turns. That's not bad. Darting Shadows deals 330% plus 110 physical dark damage to a single front row target. Damage ignores defense and cannot... Oh, okay, so it basically implies a pierce effect. That's actually kind of cool. Increase the player's physical defense by 5%. So once again, Hades is still a mage's best friend. So I know there's going to be so many skills for him, and I know he was garbage when they first came out with Hades, but when people started experimenting with him, aside from me, because I was focusing solely on Apollo, I got mixed opinions and different opinions, so to speak, to where Hades wasn't as bad as what some of us thought to be. But out of the two, Apollo still hits the hardest, and he's still the better of the two when it comes to cash heavy sylph. Or sylph. Why did I say sylph? Sylph. So, first skill, Pristine Force restores 20% of your max health to yourself and dispels 2 debuffs, increasing your crit rate by 30%. So it's basically a built-in heal plus crit bonus, which is kind of the same. It's kind of a robbery highway screw you steal from Eve. So he's the male equivalent, or the better equivalent of an Eve when it comes to physical damage. And I remember that skill. It was so good to have. Deals 350% physical dark damage to a random enemy, dispelling 1 buff, and reduces the target's awakening points by 500. Therefore, this was the equivalent to the Wind Sylph. So, this skill and this skill, Electro Sylph, and definitely the Wind Sylph. So that's another thing that's unique about Hades I've noticed too. They've actually did convert some of the other free-to-play sylphs and implanted them into him, and that's actually something I've noticed with Hades, and he actually is very unique because of that, because he's the only sylph I've come to notice that is basically the other sylphs merged into him, but he still gets shat on, sadly. And then Death's Harvest deals 190% dark physical damage to enemies and increases the target's damage by 20% for 3 turns. So again, this is basically the equivalent of Divine Prayer. And then the Orcus Blessing restores all enemies' block rate, or reduces, not restores, my bad. This is some tiny frickin' writing. Reduces all enemies' block rate by 60%, increases your damage dealt by 25%, and it lasts 5 turns. So therefore, this is the skill to use if you're going up against heavy Apollo players or Pan users, since they both affect block severely. So when you think about it, this definitely is the skill you want to have if you're facing a lot of Apollo users, if you are a Casher player, and so forth. And his Delphic, the Endless Engulf, hits everybody for 180% dark damage and inflicts the Blight, which is a bleed dot, and then receives 140% physical damage for 3 turns, and of course, he is a heavy bleeder. Deals 250% dark physical damage for the Devil's Gaze to a random enemy. Dispels 1 buff from them and inflicts a blight effect, again, bleed. So you have 1 bleed, 2 okay, so you got 2 big bleed skills for sure. Engulf, Devil's Gaze, and of course Devour Soul. That's a classic. You deal 200% damage to get back 15% of your max health, which actually is the main attack heal, which is basically like a vampire effect, to where you're sucking the life out of them to get life back. So that is basically the concept of Devour Soul, in which case it's still good as far as I know. And then we have Haunt. And if we all remember correctly, actually, Haunt was the old skill that actually dispelled 2 buffs from a person, but they changed it to where it deals damage instead to all enemies, and it dispels a buff from target. So not only did they nerf it to take away 2 buffs, but you dispel 1 buff, and you basically hit everybody. So it's another Death's Harvest, but the low equivalent version. And then the Sinister Rot. Deal 120% dark physical damage to a random enemy, and decreases the healing received by that target for 20% per 3 turns. So once again, if you're an Iris and Apollo user, Sinister Rot is the best skill to use on them for sure. And then Shadow Strike, that's just your regular, And then for his passives, the Tainted Blood, when launching a crit hit, decreases the target's crit rate by 10% per 3 turns, and is stackable up to 3 times. So that's a big 30% influencer right there. Malediction of Shadow, upon activation, reduces... Oh, okay, so that's basically, when you think about it, 530 or 330 because of... Okay, yeah, let me double check this. Awe does... Okay, yeah, so that's 530 rage. You're stealing away... Not rage, but 530 self-awakening points from people that you're stealing, which is actually kind of freaking crazy when you think about it. So yeah, this passive you definitely would want to use and get first if you're able to. And then the Dementia. I remember that passive. That one was kind of wonky. Upon activation, when a random enemy's block rate, or reduces a random enemy's block rate. I can't spell for nothing today. Reduces a random enemy's block by 10% and lasts 3 turns. So then again, definitely good to have. And then the Abyssal Shield, chance to receive a crit, minus 15%. So that is an anti-build-in. He's got a lot of anti-build-ins that affects mostly mages and those that use a lot of Pan, Iris, or Apollo. So the main 3 sylphs I've mainly talked about, aside from Iris, that help you the most, he hurts them the most. So, in which case, my new re-evaluation on Hades is he's actually really busted and really good if you're doing player versus everyone. And PvP, actually no, not PvE, I'm thinking of other stuff. I meant PvP. If you're doing a lot of PvP in Battleground, he is the main sylph you want. But the way things are nowadays, I wouldn't use Hades on that note when it comes to that. But if you want to play Hades because he's your favorite, go for it. Definitely go for it. Because at some point, I will get Hades, but not anytime soon, because I just got like a $2.50 raise at my job, which actually isn't too bad. I'm still going to be making enough just to get my bills paid for, whatever I have extra. If I have any extra left, I can put towards the game, I will. But until my bills and stuff, of course, being an adult sucks. Bills come first, and fun is, like, non-existent for part of the time. But other than that, that is my video for you guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Could I have done anything different? Could I have said anything different? What else do you guys want me to do videos on? Aside, Battleground videos ain't coming anytime soon. I promise you guys. It is not coming anytime soon. So, on that note, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If me, Gem, or Gap, or Gem or Gem, but then again she responds to either. And Trip decide to want to do a Team Arena videos, I will definitely try to include them in those. And Trip is actually watching my videos, so Trip, screw you. I'm kidding. I love you, buddy. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what we can do and try throw a plan together that all of you guys can approve of. So until the next video, guys, take it easy. Adios. Later days. And till the next video, I guess. Adios and later days. Purifier. Former Purifier, now Sephora. Hidden Age of Lionheart. Sign out. Later, guys.